test is coming fast and furious. Let's spend a few more minutes reviewing, preparing ourselves. Today, Mr. Review, I'm here to make it simple and clear. We'll be talking about the courts. Oh, the court system. Remember Alexander Hamilton called it the least dangerous branch. Oh, that's one thing Hamilton has sung that, frankly, hasn't been all that popular. I would say the courts have become one of our most dangerous branches. Some would say the most dangerous. Every issue in America ultimately comes down to a court decision. The judges, and remember the federal judges are appointed for life. Once they're behind the bench telling us what's right and what's wrong, what's left and what's right, what's good and what's bad, we have little choice. We must listen to their decisions. Remember, the Supreme Court has been given, under the case Marbury versus Madison, judicial review. This allows the Supreme Court, in particular, to rule on the constitutionality of laws and actions, laws of the Congress and actions of the President. This has given our court extreme amount of power and authority. But remember, here in America, we are not a nation of men and women. We are a nation of laws. And so our laws are of utmost importance to us. And it is for this reason that we hope and assume that our justice is blind. We believe in equality, equal protection of all citizens. I'm peeking a little bit here because many today would argue the justice is blind maxim is being challenged as we speak. Oh, the Supreme Court in our lifetime has certainly entered into the political thicket. The Supreme Court and other federal judges certainly are no longer above politics. How do we know this? Just look at the confirmation process. If the confirmation process, the advise and consent of the Senate, would be somewhat routine, don't you think? But these political appointees will make a difference, pushing America left, pushing America right. When the president appoints federal judges, the Senate takes up a very stingy process because it matters. Politically, it matters. Oh boy, maybe justice is not so blind after all. Well, beyond the confirmation process, let's look a little bit at how the process works. Remember, the Supreme Court is an appellate court. That means its jurisdiction is determined by cases that come before it. A case is heard at the lowest levels of federal court, the district courts, and people say, I don't like the decision. I need an appeal. I need it to be decided again, to be reviewed again. And it works its way up the appellate process. This is called jurisdiction. Which courts hear the case? The Supreme Court, in appellate jurisdiction, hears the case for the last and final time. Let's not forget, however, that the Supreme Court and its jurisdiction is determined by Congress. Congress determines many of the rules of our courts. But let's talk about that interesting word, jurisprudence. If jurisdiction is the fuzzy word that describes which court will hear my case, jurisprudence is that fuzzy little word that describes how do I as a judge make my decision? Well, I guess it's not as easy as we thought. The two primary camps are judicial activism and judicial restraint. Those judges that practice activism realize, or at least think that they realize, that our laws are living, that times change and evolve. Therefore, our judicial decisions should take into consideration the times, how we think today, to modern up the place. Judicial restraint, however, these judges feel that the law is the law, and their job is to not bring bias or perspective or sympathy or even empathy into the courtroom. Those who practice restraint believe that the law should merely be applied as it is written. And if it's not clear, go back to how the founders debated when that law was first passed. Judicial restraint is sometimes referred to as originalism. Oh, it's a big debate in today's courtroom drama. Liberals and Democrats tend to prefer activism, as of today, and conservatives tend to at least talk and boast about their commitment to judicial restraint. Say, in addition to these two fuzzy words, let's talk a little bit about the types of opinions that the Supreme Court writes. The Supreme Court writes a majority opinion. This is the opinion of the court after each case that it hears, and they only hear about 80 cases, even though there are over 5,000 cases appealed to the court every year. Huh! They don't hear very many. The majority opinion must be at least 5 votes of the 9 justices. 9 justices? Will we ever get to 9? 5 justices, a majority, must decide for the case to be decided. The majority opinion gives their rationale. Based on what laws and what precedent? Precedent, you mean stare decisis. Oh, I love those Latin words. Behave. Under what precedent is this decision to be made? It's found in the majority opinion. But what happens if I'm on the court and I agree with the majority, but I have a different rationale? I've used different cases, different precedent. This is called a concurring opinion. And we see a lot of these each year too. But what happens if I'm a judge and I disagree? I don't like the opinion of the court. Well, I write my dissenting opinion, and I too use cases and precedent to show that the majority opinion is wrong. Whew! That's a bit of a stick in the mud. But then there's another opinion that we sometimes see, and that's called a per curiam opinion. This is an unsigned opinion. Not real clear on why it's always used, but it's not used very often. They tell us in political science it's per curiam is used when it's in a unanimous vote and no one single judge wants to put his or her name on the opinion. Well, what else can we talk about with the courts? Because we don't have much time. But you know what I like to say? I like to say those amicus curiae briefs. This is when outsiders, interest groups, elites, political scientists, experts try to influence the court's decision. Maybe another piece of evidence that our Supreme Court is no longer above politics, accepting more and more amicus curiae briefs. Oh, I love the courts. Here comes the judge. Remember, the least dangerous branch? Hardly. If so, the confirmation process wouldn't be as nearly as sticky as it's become. Keep an eye on those courts. They may be the most dangerous branch, after all. My name is Mr. Review, and we've been talking fast and furious. And I'm here to make it simple and clear.